First grade, we went to school here at St. Vincent's School from first grade until sixth grade. So first through fifth grade together here. That was me. And that looks like Rick Pollock right there. And there's Aaron Schneider and Damon Schneider right there. So we went to church a couple times a week, and then we had the days we didn't go to church, we had a religion class. So I don't think it was over the top. At least I didn't feel like we were preached to a lot. I didn't feel like it was, I thought it was pretty reasonable. They just kind of taught you, this is the way you should live. This is the way Jesus did things. I felt like it was pretty low key. I didn't feel like it was a big, the only difference was that we did things that said prayers and went to church. Other than that, I felt like it was pretty much, and there was crucifixes in all the classrooms, things like that. We had Catholic Schools Week. Other than that, I thought it wasn't that much different than probably the other schools were. Some of the classmates that I would say stuck out, we had the kid in our class that probably everyone had, that was the guy that was showed up clean, and after about an hour was always dirty. That was Chuck Nelson. He stuck out because he was always kind of a character, and still see him around once in a while. Ryan McGrew, I don't remember how many years he was here, not real long. He was one of the public school kids that we got. Every now and then we'd get a kid that wasn't making it in the public school for whatever reason. They were either the bully and they got kicked out of somewhere, or they were getting bullied and they got sent here to try and avoid it. And he was, I think, the bully. I don't know where he went. He was here for a couple of years, and he was always causing trouble. And I do remember, and I remember he would never show up at the school picnic. I think he was afraid that they were going to turn on him. Everyone was going to gang up on him or something at the school picnic, so he wouldn't show up.
To a certain extent, maybe moving from St. Peter's to a public school in third grade had a lot to do with some of the anxiety that I feel every once in a while, because it was very quick, sudden change. Going from a very tight-knit group of people, like a small class, to all of a sudden going into a huge, well, not huge for our town, but huge for me, group of people that I had no idea, who anybody was. And, and when I first started public school, I felt a lot of, I don't want to say bullying, but a lot of teasing. And it took me a long time to adapt and warm up to certain people. And so I think that kind of carried over into my adult life a little bit, in terms of certain social anxieties or just general anxiety. Although as I've gotten out of college, it's kind of seems to have waned a little bit. St. Peter's, I went from preschool all the way to third grade, and it doesn't seem like a lot of time, but to me, looking back, it just seems like I have so many memories of that, and doing a lot of things in that school. And I think in a lot of ways it differs from public school because, well, one, you have much smaller classes and it's way more hands-on. Two, of course, the religious angle. So you do get into a lot of religious lesson plans, and you pray every morning for your snack, and you pray for other people, and you all get in a circle and talk about what you'd like to pray for. And I don't know, everybody just seemed kind of everyone seemed so close in Catholic school. And in public school, he is still, as the grades went on, it felt like everyone got a little closer, but early on, elementary to middle school, it was just like everything was different. It was like everyone had their little groups that they all wanted to go into, and like everyone was a lot more aggressive.
Well, the other set of twins weren't really twins, but they just wear the same outfit. It's Shelley Zander and Katie Gehrman. But they must have put them in there because they had the same outfit on. I don't know why they... You don't look happy to be dressed that way either on that picture. Yeah, I remember at Christmas, right before we went on Christmas vacation, the deacon was this really tall guy. And he had a really deep voice, and he would put on this costume like Saint Nick. And Rupert was like the school, like the church secretary was this lady that was real short, and she would make her face black, and she wouldn't talk. She would just like look at you. So it was like the shortest person you've ever seen and the tallest person you've ever seen. And this guy would come through the halls, and he would bang on the doors so loud that it would scare you half to death. I mean, you could hear him coming, like you'd hear him 3 classrooms down, so you knew when you heard it, it was getting closer. And these doors, which of course are still the same, are like 2-inch thick. I don't know if they're oak or whatever they are, they're solid. And you would hear this guy banging on the door. Yeah, these are the doors that when we knew St. Nick was coming. That's what you got on the door when St. Nick came. Yeah, they used to have this thing here called School Loop, and it was like some kind of a special cable channel that was for schools. And for Tornado Awareness Week, we always played that. And I remember looking forward to it every year, even though I was scared half to death by the time it was over. I couldn't wait to watch it. And then when I went to high school, we had a meteorology class in high school. And I was looking through the videos in the back of the classroom, and I mentioned to the teacher, I saw a cassette tape labeled Countdown to Survival. And I'm like, is this the 15-minute tornado movie? And he's like, yeah, it's so.
And went to Mass every Friday and Sunday, because when you go to a Catholic school, you go on Fridays and everybody has to have a speaking part, and it was a pain in the ass. But I used to be a lot more religious, and then it kind of devolved to just going on holidays, and now it devolved into nothing at all. My parents still go to church, but I don't know, it's just something that I've fallen away from, and I don't know, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Well, a close friend of mine happens to be a big squatcher, as they're called. He's actually appeared on Finding Bigfoot a few times as in a few segments, and he's the one that really got me into like paranormal things and conspiracies. And I've been on 2 Sasquatch hunts now. For work. I was doing some film work for them, but I've gotten to experience, what they do on those Sasquatch hunts. And to me, I'm still on the fence a little bit about that. If I had to say yes or no, I mean, it'd be more towards no, but there are some things that I've experienced that make me feel like there could be something out there. One of the theories that I was presented with is that he crosses in and out of dimensions, and that's why you only get such a small glimpse of him every once in a while. I could look at this and be like, oh, it's stupid, like how could anyone believe that? But like, life just seems a little bit more fun if those things do exist. And if, what's the difference between believing in spirits and believing in like religion?
Mid to late May, and it was one of those hot, humid days, and I remember there was storms coming, but we weren't really that concerned about it. And we all came to the gym, and we started I would say we were halfway through the awards night, and one of the teachers or the principal came up to the microphone and said, there's a tornado warning, or there's a tornado spotted out by like Highway 41, which is just southwest of the school. It was like headed this way. I don't know if it was on the ground or not. I don't remember all the details, but they ended up making us all go downstairs in the downstairs in the halls and get down like it was like we practiced for, and had to put our hands over our heads, and yeah, it was kind of that was the only time that ever happened. Oh yeah, we did. So easy. I don't know what that was supposed to do to save us. Well, I met my wife, Carrie, in 4th grade here at this school, and she was here for part of 4th grade and then left. And then they moved back in 7th grade, so then I knew her 7th, 8th, all the way through high school. And then after, I went to work at the railroad right out of high school, which was what I always wanted to do. And she went to college, and after she got out of college, we ended up starting a relationship, and we got married, and now we have 3 girls. The oldest is Kathleen.
Okay, my name is Kathleen, and I'm 9 years old, and my class did these Mother Earth projects for Earth Day.
Yeah, I remember those guys doing that. Yeah, that was some of the good old. Yeah, yeah, there was always a lot of good bathroom stories going in there, and seeing someone peeing on top of the urinals. Shoot. When we were kids, the kids used to pee up on top of us.
Yeah,
Well, that's boys.
that's disgusting.
That's boys. Going in there and seeing like a kindergartner with their pants pulled all the way down. It was kind of fun. It was interesting to go to a school where you had kindergartners all the way to 8th grade in the same building, sharing stuff like bathrooms. It was always, you always saw some interesting stuff. We had a pretty good family life, I thought, growing up. My mom went to school here, and then went to Lourdes, and she met my dad at Lourdes. He was from he moved all around. His dad had different jobs. So they met and got married and had us, and they moved into a house on Knapp Street in 80. And so I was about 3 years old when they moved in. And that's where I grew up, and that's still where my parents are today. So, in a lot of ways, not much has changed in my life. The house that I grew up in is still my parents' house. This is the school that I grew up going to, and I'm still sitting here. I always wanted to work at the railroad, and now I'm working at the railroad in the same place I envisioned working, doing the job I wanted to work as an engineer. My favorite TV show is The Price is Right, and that's still pretty much the same, other than when Bob retired, it's not quite the same, and I got to see The Price is Right now. So, in a lot of ways, I ended up married to the girl that I wanted to get married to when I was in 8th grade. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, my life is hasn't changed much. It's kind of, I've had this, I tell people that I really don't have a lot of other goals, because I pretty much checked everything I ever wanted to do off by the time I hit like age 28.
I have a mother, a father, one sister, and I was adopted. My sister was as well. My parents are all right, one second. Well, okay, since I can remember, my father was a workaholic, and even when he wasn't at work, he was finding projects around the house to do, which, is still the case to this day. And he's in his 70s now, and he still has a full-time job. Every weekend still goes outside, does a lot of lawn work, does some projects around the house. And so I've always been, in an environment where my father has been sort of a provider and worked. I've seen him just work a lot. He never really complained too much about it, although I can kind of tell it's not really what he wants to do. My mother was sort of the same way. I would say she worked a lot as well, but as far as who was more of a nurturer, it was definitely my mother. And we were really spoiled as kids. We got everything. Our Christmases were huge. It was like the Rockefellers. I mean, even for like holidays where you're not even really supposed to get gifts, we get gifts. I mean, we get shit on Halloween, Valentine's Day, you name it, we got gifts. And so I think in that aspect we were spoiled. But it was a strict but fair household. You know, it wasn't like, here, have everything you want and here's no life lessons. It was like, you know, we're gonna give you things and treat you fairly, but this is our expectations. So, you know, I don't think I'm an asshole because I was spoiled. I don't think.
Trying to say, okay, hey, let's do something next Saturday. That's supposed to be my day off. And then Friday night, they call me out of town. So there's a lot of times when you can't plan your time off very well. You just have to, you find out the people that are understanding in your life because some people just don't accept it. And they're like, well, it's too hard to maintain a friendship like that. And a lot of marriages don't last because it's just too stressful to deal with the hours. And then missing so much sleep, you tend to be, and I've felt the effects of this, you tend to get more, you get angry easier, you can lose your temper easier because you're not sleeping very often or you're not sleeping at night. So it's a struggle. It's hard. It's very difficult. There's some times when I almost wish I would have done something else because it is hard now, but I really enjoy what I do. But it's a struggle to deal with being tired and not knowing when you're going to go to work, when you're going to come home from work. But over time, it's getting a little better.
So my friend Mitch, who is my best friend, and you know, we grew up together. He got married at a pretty young age. He was 21, 22 when he got married. And at the moment, he has a kid with his wife, and it just seemed like even in high school, like everything, like he just had a set course in life, and he knew exactly what he wanted, and like he was gonna get that. I also, you know, in terms of other genres and things that I've written before, I always have a theme of friendship and sort of coming of age. And basically what happens when one friend is ready to move on and one friend is not quite there yet. And that stems from, of course, my best friend moving to Texas and then starting a life, getting married. And it was always something that stuck with me because it was just like, how the hell does this guy have it all figured out? And why can't I get it together?
I would say that the only way, and I don't know if I'd even call it successfully managed, but the way I've managed to work my career and have a family has got a lot to do with my wife. She's really good about understanding. She knows that I wanted to work at the railroad all my life, and she appreciates my job because it gives us a good lifestyle. But it's been tough. There's been times when I've lost my temper and she's gotten upset about it, or I've come home and I just don't want to deal with stuff. I just want to go to bed because I'm so tired. So, I mean, we deal with it and it works, but it's hard. If she was not as understanding or as able to deal with it, I don't think it would work, or I would have had to stay single. I always felt, though, that we got a good education, and I always thought we had a really nice school. I always thought that our school was in good shape. I always thought that it was taken care of well. I had a lot of fun here. My time here is way more good memories than bad.
it's taking me a while to conjure up, because not because I don't have a fond memory, but because I feel like I have a lot of fond memories. A lot of, people tell me all the time, like, high school and senior year was like the worst year of their lives. But like, I think back to senior year, and that was like, I had some of my fondest memories from senior year of high school, and it's not because like I'm just like a townie stuck in the past, like riding on like like I don't think I peaked or anything, hopefully not, but I just felt like it was so carefree, and like all of our friends, like I had a really tight group of friends, and like it's all the same friends that I have to this day, and we all still hang out, and we're all really close.
But when we came back from the Dells, we stopped at a gas station on the interstate because my mom said, Dad's got to go to the bathroom. And he really had to go, and he ran straight in, and he sat down, and he went and went and went. It was a lot. And I flushed several times, but then when he got up, there was a lot to clean up on him. And he rested his hands on my shoulders as I was cleaning him up. And he just kept saying, thank you. And it was later when someone talked to me who knew him that I worked with, said, do you think your dad still knows you? And I started thinking about that moment, and I thought, no, he doesn't know me anymore. And he thought some perfect stranger was cleaning him up in a gas station on the freeway. So it was tough to think about it that way. When I realized it later, it really made me sad because I had hoped that he would at least know me, and it was way earlier than I thought it would happen.
It's funny. I saw him like 2 years ago. Yes, it was 2 years ago in the winter. And I had not talked to him in 25 years at that point. When I was 10 and we had lived in West Bend for about a year, well, maybe I was 12, I don't remember. He called my sister Christy. My sister Christy always had this weird attraction to him, I'm not sure. But he called and we talked to him, and he was saying, oh, I love you so much. And I thought, I said, you don't even know me. I bet if he saw me on the street, he wouldn't recognize me. And I knew that when I was 12. And I told him, well, you can't love me. You don't even know me. And then that's the last time I talked to him. And my sister has always kept in contact with him, talking to him, 3 or 4 times a year. And he has cancer of some sort. I think maybe prostate cancer, I'm not sure. And so he used to be a police officer for the city of Milwaukee, and he was shot when I was in kindergarten. And he has not worked since then. He sort of had a desk job, I think, for a while, but then he's always been discharged and lives in Texas. But he comes every other year to the city because he has to have like a physical and meet people, because he's still on, I guess, city of Milwaukee payroll since he was shot on the job. And so he has to come and check in with them every other year. And my sister always sees him, and she talks to him, like I said, 3 or 4 times a year, I'm not sure. And then 2 years ago, for whatever reason, I agreed to see him. My older sister, absolutely not. She wants nothing to do with him. She could care less. But I agreed to see him, and we met at a Starbucks in like Menominee Falls or something, which is really bizarre. And I figured that I would know what he looked like because he's huge. He's like 6'3", 6'4", huge dude. In my head, he always kind of looked like John Goodman, I thought, maybe. That general stature, maybe. But also, I mean, I guess I just didn't really know what he looked like because I hadn't seen him since I was so small. And, I mean, the last time I saw him, I was probably, 10. And then, I talked to him at 12. So here I was, an old lady, getting ready to see him. And I walked in and walked right past him. But then I heard this, like, really twangy voice on a cell phone, and I turned around. And he was calling my sister because he thought that I'd stood him up.
Huh. Nice. I've had similar memories, or I have similar memories. One was I started playing piano when I was 5, and I would play the piano by myself often at home. And I remember one time I was playing something, I was practicing, and then I stopped and I started questioning who I was, as in, who am I? That really big question, what my purpose is, I guess, kind of. But more similar to what you just shared with me, we had this shelf, like a glass shelf unit in our living room. And I remember there was one that I just couldn't reach, but I remember thinking one day I will be able to reach it and it'll be super victorious, like it'd be like a victory for me, So I really wanted to. That's where like the candy was and all the good stuff. But I wasn't very upset about it. I thought, I just give it time. You'll get taller. You'll be able to reach. I remember arriving at the airport and then my mother's future husband picking us up. He's Black, so that was the first time I've ever encountered a Black person. He's a 6'3", large male, so that was kind of intimidating for me, but it was exciting as well. And then I was walking out. It was dark outside, so I was walking out to the parking lot, getting in the car, and then driving. We landed in Chicago and driving, and me looking out of the window in the car and thinking that this is not what I imagined America to look like. There was no skyscrapers that I saw or anything that I saw in the Hollywood movies that we got in Ukraine. It just didn't match what I expected, and I was really disappointed. Especially the following day when it was light outside and I could see more clearly what was around me. That was even more of a letdown. It was mostly like farmland or like suburbs.
Oh, well, I remember falling off a life. This is really strange. I remember a bunch of different things. My family flew to Texas, and I was a year old or a year and a half old or something. I can remember being on the plane and looking out the window. And we flew at evening when it was light and into the dark. And so I can remember looking out a window with light and then it being dark. I had a young friend named David who we moved away from each other when we were 2.5. And I remember playing with him. My dad built boats, and we would play in the hull of one of the boats that he built, a sailboat, which when I got older and I looked at the boat, I couldn't believe that anybody could fit in the hull of the boat. But David and I would crawl in there and sit and play. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to get divorced. I got divorced because I thought it would be better to have 2 loving homes than one home that was turbulent. And so we got divorced. And my ex-wife was like, well, good, now you can go back to California and you can see your kids in the summer. And I went, no, I didn't sign on for that. I want to be in their life, and I want to be in their daily life, and I want them to know that their dad didn't abandon them, and that their dad stood by them and supported them and took care of them, not just monetarily, but took care of them emotionally and was with them because they were valuable people, and I wanted them in my life, and I wanted to be in their life. I didn't want to ever be a long distant or a non-presence for my children.
Probably in most circumstances, hatred is worse. But maybe in the sense of a parent, indifference is worse. I would tell him that I understood. I understand now more this, whether or not it was real, and he probably didn't realize, but if he had this really like sort of post-traumatic, stress from Vietnam, I feel like I've had some post-traumatic symptoms in my life, and I can be way more empathetic to that. Well, my dad left when my parents were divorced when I was 2 or 3. And I feel like he was maybe like halfway dating our neighbor actually for a while, this lady Bev, who drove a ridiculous car and like ran over my sister when she was on her big wheel. But he was gone then early. But I saw him when we lived in Milwaukee still, because he would, like I said, he would come every once in a while and pick us up in his tiny little car and take us to his aunt's house where he lived with the chinchilla. He lived in Chicago in an apartment for a while with some dude. And once he brought us there and took us to the bar across the street with him. But really, I can distinctly remember like 2 to 3 times actually hanging out with him after my parents divorced. So until, from the age of 4 till 9, I have maybe 3 times I can remember being with him.
Well, this is my father, and he's a musician, and it's one of the reasons why I also started playing piano at a young age. But I've always looked up to him for doing something that he loved and making a living out of it, and just being creative, being an artist. Just really respect that. It wasn't difficult because I didn't realize at that point that I was not going to see him for a very long time. So it wasn't hard at all. My mom and I traveled prior to that trip before to the Black Sea and other regions for vacations without my father around where we lived, and I just figured it was going to be another trip that we took, and I didn't really understand, I guess, or no one really sat me down and explained it to me that it was going to be permanent.
This is a picture of them at some party. I'm not sure whose party it was, but and my mom gave us all a copy of it because she really liked the picture of them together. And this was a couple years before he had Alzheimer's, and you can tell because he's got a pen in his hand, or in his pocket, because he always had pens in his pocket before he had Alzheimer's, and then as that went away, he just never bothered him. But he always had a real gleam in his eye, and my mom looks very happy, which after Alzheimer's, she wasn't very happy either. We all took it pretty hard. We don't have a ton of extended family. We were always all just kind of always us. And I have 3 brothers and a sister, and everyone pitched in. I mean, everyone went and gave my mom time off so she could go do other things. And even as hard as it was, because he would get so angry, but also he had a strange obsession with jackets. He would find every jacket in the house and put it on. I have a picture somewhere of him sitting on the side of the couch with every jacket in the house, including mine. And so that kind of became a running joke, but we all just pitched in and tried to make it as easy for my mom as possible. And we all thought she should have put him in a nursing home much earlier than she did, but she loved him for 50 years.
Now, let me preface this by saying I never wanted children. I didn't want to be married either. I was a professed bachelor who said, kids, I don't want kids. And the woman I met, she said she didn't want kids either, and we were good with that. And then one day she said, well, I think I want children, and I didn't. But I felt, I didn't marry this woman to prevent her from having children, so I'm like, go have some children, and she didn't want to do that. So I thought, well, okay, I didn't want to get married, but I got married. I learned to be okay with that. I'm a learner, so I adapted. I became a married guy. I figured, well, I can try the parent thing, and I'll see what that's like. And when my daughter was born, my world, as I knew it was over, and an incredible, new, delightful, ecstatic world began. I said to my dad before he died, my kids were maybe, 5 or 6 and 2 or 3. And I said, the best, you can take anything I've ever done in my life and trash it. The best thing I've ever done is to become a father. And my son being born, again, another just milestone in my life. And it's just very cool. When I was 18, I met this guy. He was very Zen, very Buddha-like, a big Khalil Gibran fan. And he was like, you kind of live with your parents, in the shadow of your parents. You worry about whether you're going to do things right or wrong, or you have these rules that you grew up with, and you got to understand that your parents didn't do you any service by giving you these rules, and they didn't you're their gift. They should feel grateful that you exist. You shouldn't have to feel grateful to them because they chose to have you. And so they should take care of you. They should give you money. They should do whatever they have to because that was a decision they made. And had they not made it, you wouldn't be here. And so with my children, they're definitely a gift. They're truly a gift. And because I had them, I do feel like, I brought some kids into the world, so it's up to me to help nurture them.
Well, I just saw Kathleen. Maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. She was here visiting, and we went and had some drinks at Barnacle Buds. And she told me that last year at this same time, all I did for a week straight was tell her how much I hated my kids and wished that I didn't have them. And I told her that I could never agree with that. Like, we just have obviously a really different memory of what happened last summer. I can recall feeling really, really, really bad and feeling really depressed and saying that I hated a lot of things and that being a parent was really, really, really hard for me at that time. But I just cannot agree with her that I said that I hated Sage and Milo. I just can't imagine feeling that way. I can't imagine saying that. And then she said to me, if you ever get pregnant again, I'll fucking slap you in the face. When I had taken her to Sanford or some fancy restaurant over here for this, fancy girls' night out dinner, that was going to cost me a few $100s. And I thought for a minute about pretending I had to pretending I had to go to the bathroom and just leaving her with the check after she said that. But of course I wouldn't. But we still, I mean, when I saw her a week and a half ago, she still insists that was my mantra of last summer. I hate my kids. I fucking hate my kids. And I don't agree. Like these judgments that I felt from her, I think affected me a lot. I questioned myself and thought, oh, was I really not supposed to have kids? Am I a horrible parent? Am I going to have these, kids that are all jacked up and mental because I'm just a bad, crazy mom? Or because I don't homeschool them or any of these things. I think, so when it comes from people that are kind of supposed to love you unconditionally, then it influences more how you feel about yourself. I could care less what, a person on the street thinks about me and if I'm a bad mom or a good mom or a rich mom or a poor mom or whatever. I don't care. It's super, super, super hard to be a parent, and I wish that people were kind of more gentle to each other than they are.
Yeah. So if whenever my mom would drink a lot, she would sometimes get a little abusive. And I mean, looking back at it, I guess I understood she was in a different state of mind because she would just get really, really drunk, shit-faced, type, pass out in the bed type of thing, or anywhere where, she would take me out with her sometimes to weddings or other, parties, get-togethers, and I want to say that time my father took me to the park and then to a theater. It was a puppet show. And I remember feeling very loved and cared for, and just, that unique relationship a daughter and a father have. But we don't speak anymore, and it really is no relationship left there.
I think probably the day my dad died, it was pretty surreal to sit and we sat there for hours just watching him lose his breath. And at the very end, he, right before he took his last breath, his arm came to his chest. And I was, hoping beyond hope that was a good sign, but it was really just the end. Knowing he was going, feeling as though, I don't have a dad anymore, that kind of stuff, and just watching my siblings and nieces and nephews go watch him die. I don't think it was anything they should have had to see necessarily. That's my niece hugging him, and he had Alzheimer's at that time, and she was having a hard time with it and realizing that he was going away. And his mind was starting to go away, and she was really holding on to him tight. And when I see that picture, it breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a very personal, private, subject for me. It's not something that I love my mother very much, but it also has, scarred me, the negative sides of our relationship. So it's not something I want to share with everybody. And, of course, you can't just flick on a switch and make it something that's available and easy to share with many people. My interactions with my mother, or the times that she was abusive towards me, verbally or physically, will definitely have some sort of effect on me to a degree. I believe, because she also was very loving and caring at other points in my life, and that has had a positive effect on me and how I treat other people. I think that if you become conscious of how those negative events, how they reverberate throughout your life, you know, if you know, like if everything you do and everything you say has an effect, sends out a wave throughout your life, right? And at a certain point, I don't think you can stop it, but you can definitely, and I don't want to say muffle it, but maybe you can redirect it, or you can deal with it. But in that regard, it will have an effect. But I think you can kind of change directions and how it will affect you, or you know, maybe try in a way that it will not, you know, have negative effects, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, it will. Forever and ever. Until you don't have your memories anymore, until you die.
I think that you would probably like to have a kid. I think that for you it would be fun to have someone to hang out with, someone to, you know, go on bike rides with, and to, you know, teach them how to film things, and just to see this person experience everything for the first time, like, you know, the first time that it rains or thunders, or the first time there's a rainbow, or any of these things. It's amazing. And I feel like you would probably really like having a person to show the world to.
And it was because I wanted them to feel loved, and I wanted them to know that their dad cared, and their dad was interested and is still interested, and adores them and thinks the world of them, and wants to be able to let them be their own people, but encourage them or support them in whatever way that I can. Nick Mancuso is a friend of mine. He's a wonderful actor and a great friend, and we were in Canada together in Toronto, and he said, how did you ever end up in Wisconsin? Kind of like, and I told him the story, and he goes, oh my gosh. He says, your whole life, your children, it was ordained by God. He goes, if the world, if the circumstances hadn't conspired in a particular way, your children would never be born. And I went, I know. This is the thing that I'm aware of, that the stuff that got me to here, though it was less than glorious by most people's accounts, it's the most miraculous of all things. So things always tend to work out for the good in the long run, especially if you keep an open mind and know and have faith that everything works together for good. It will.